Okay, so today we're going to be talking about biology fundamentals, just a brief overview of everything. So let's start with cells. There are two types of cells that we're going to compare and contrast: prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Now, we know pro means no nucleus, and they look like most of our common bacteria. They have cilia and flagella, but they don't necessarily have to. Here's an example of one without. We have eukaryotic cells, which have true nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Now, these membrane-bound organelles, such as chloroplast, vacuoles, nucleus, other types of that. You can see this plant cell here with its cell wall and its green little chloroplast. This is an animal cell. It kind of sucks. Over here is a better animal cell, and it's going to have the organelles and all those important parts within the cell that make important things happen. You can pause it there to study those. But before, let's talk about the things that prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells have in common. They both have a cell membrane, they both have genetic material, and they both have ribosomes. This is all very important. But before that, let's take a side break to talk about homeostasis. Cells, just like your house, have to maintain a certain balance. Like in your house, if it gets too hot, you turn on the fan. If it gets too cold, you turn on the heater. We do this with water and solutes as well. If you see on the left, a hypotonic solution where the concentration is higher inside the cell, so the water fills the cell, swelling it. And on the right is a hypertonic solution where the water is exiting the cell. Now back to those ribosomes. Okay, ribosomes are just one of the many important organelles, but today we're going to look at three of them. So they're the ribosomes, the black dots, and they're tacked onto the rough ER. And there's a nucleus. We're also going to look at a chloroplast and a mitochondria. Now, out of all these, they're very important, but the nucleus is in charge because they have the DNA, which is the code for how everything runs. When we talk about chloroplast and mitochondria, we're going to be talking about photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Now, the end goal of photosynthesis and cellular respiration is to take the energy we get from the sun and get it into our cells so our cells can use it to live. The energy only is accepted at our cellular level in the form of ATP. Okay, we can think about this as like coins or cash, and we'll walk through how that works. Now, think of the sun energy, that light energy, is writing a check. Now, what are you going to do when you get a check? You take it to the bank. And once you put it in the bank, what photosynthesis is going to do is produce a glucose molecule, C6H12O6. You can think about this as your debit card. So you have that money on your card, but you got to change it out before you can actually use it in your cell. We do this at the mitochondria. So the mitochondria is like our cellular energy ATM. Make sure you know that the products in the reactants are complementary for photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Now we're going to talk about those ribosomes. Now in the ribosomes, something very important happens, and it's called protein synthesis. It's where we make our proteins. And this happens in two major steps: transcription and translation. Now during transcription, we're going to take a copy of that DNA with all those codes, C's and G's and A's and T's, and turn it into mRNA, which has C's and G's and A's and U's. That mRNA is going to leave the nucleus and run through that ribosome where the amino acids are going to be assembled together using tRNA in the code. Remember, the whole point of this is protein synthesis. We're making proteins. So as those amino acids are stuck together in that long chain, they're making what we call a polypeptide chain, which is the beginning of a protein. Now, these separate amino acids have a general category. Okay, we can think of them almost as building blocks or Legos. And you can take Legos, right, and put together and make a bunch of different things. Delicious. All right, remember, those are like our amino acids. If we look and see at our biomolecules, we have four different types of biomolecules: proteins, carbs, nucleic acids, and lipids. These each have different functions within the cell. Proteins are for structure, carbohydrates are for quick energy, nucleic acids, that's what we build our genetic material with, and of course lipids, long-term energy. They each have their own building block. Okay, these different building blocks come together and assemble into these polymers. So we take the amino acids, we use protein synthesis to link them together, and we can make different polymers such as enzymes. All right, that's a lot, but let's zoom out, okay, back out to the cellular level. Now, for cells to replicate, they have to go through what we call the cell cycle. They have to grow in G1, S phase, which we'll see in a second, is very important, and then they double check everything in G2. That's a big stop. Now, S phase, this is where DNA replication happens, right? We have our double-stranded double helix here with our nucleotides and our nitrogenous bases, right? We see that sugar phosphate backbone. And remember, these nitrogenous bases go together in a certain way. C's and G's and A's and T's. We can remember that cat is stuck in a tree. Okay, cat in Spanish is gato, and tree in Spanish is arbol. Tree, T-A, arbol, cat, C-G, gato. Okay, as we go through these phases, it's then going to what we call the M phase, where it's going to divide. Now, there are two types of division. One is mitosis, which goes through prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. And then you're going to end up with two identical cells. And you can see how the chromosomes work in each of these phases. All right, but this is held in contrast to meiosis, which is where we divide up and get our sex cells. So on the left, you see mitosis, same cells. On the right, you have different cells. Now, I'm sorry the video messed up here, but we know at the end of meiosis, we get unique gametes with only half the amount of chromosomes, 23 to be exact. So they're called haploid cells. We then take these half chromosomes and we can mix them with the parents, with other parents, males and females. And we can see that here in the Punnett square. Remember, we used Punnett squares to predict the outcomes of offspring and what they could look like. And we look at heterozygous, homozygous, dominant, and recessive are very important. And we can see that each of these is going to produce an offspring. Like you're an offspring. Okay, and that's you right there in class. You got to stop dabbing, guys. Seriously, it's not funny. It's very distracting. Okay, but if we get a bunch of you, okay, each in your own unique little individual way, but you are interbreeding, right? That means you reproduce a fertile offspring who can then reproduce. We say that you are a species and you fit here in this population. Now, we can see that above or below the population, you're going to fit into what we call a community, which is going to be several populations, which then fit into a unique ecosystem, which has certain types of rainfalls and temperatures. Now, that's just one way we classify things. We also classify them in taxonomic groups, which is where we separate organisms by their characteristics. All right, and these characteristics fall semi-neatly into 6 kingdoms. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at a few characteristics of these 6 kingdoms, which you know, Animalia, fungi, plantae, protista, archaebacteria, and eubacteria. Now, fungi is just like fungus, your typical mushrooms and different types of gross stuff. Eubacteria is going to be the typical bacteria that you see every day. It's what makes you sick. But archaebacteria is old man bacteria. It's ancient bacteria. It's from a long, long time ago. Now we can see the ones at the bottom are multicellular, and the kingdoms at the top are, for the most part, unicellular. Let's look at the characteristics of Animalia, animals such as you. Remember, you are eukaryotic, so you have that true nucleus. You can move, hence the dabbing, and you are also a heterotroph. That means you get your energy from something else, right? Either burgers or fries or, whatever. Versus plants, they're still eukaryotic, but they are autotrophs. Remember, they have that chloroplast, so they can make their own energy. They're able to take that check and put it in the bank themselves. But they are stationary. They can't move. No dabbing for plants. Fungi are kind of like plants and animals. Then we go to archaebacteria, which we believe is where it started back with a theory we call endosymbiotic theory, where we believe that chloroplast and mitochondria were engulfed by other cells, and we know at the very, very beginning that there's this common ancestor that happened about that time, which led to different types of evolution, right? The theory of evolution. One of the pieces of evidence I want to look at the theory of evolution is structures, okay? We're going to look at homologous structures right here, such as the human forearm and a bat's wing. They have the same structure, or the bone structure, but different functions, right? Bats use their wings for flight. We use our hands for, not flight. You can think about this as a strip mall, all built out of the same material, but Subway and FedEx are going to serve different purposes. All right, we can take that same bat's wing and look at it and compare it to a butterfly's wing, and we're going to call these structures analogous structures because they are very different structures. No bones in a butterfly's wing, right? But they have the same function. They both give flight. You can think about this like different types of houses that can be built out of different materials, bricks, clay, ice, whatever, but they're still the same function, still homes. Okay, guys, that's a lot of information. Feel free to go back and rewatch it and pause it on any of the pictures that have a lot of information. And there's a lot of tie-ins between these two, such as the biomolecules fit into the levels of organization, so on and so forth. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments or hit me up on Remind 101 and let me know what you think. Good luck on your test, guys. I hope this helps, and I'll see you on Monday.